Hello, welcome to this video, and on this video I will be reviewing the new album by Moon Safari, Himalayan Volume 2, and I will also be interviewing their lead singer Petter Sandstrom. So the way I'm going to do this, I'll do a little bit of a review now at the start to tell you what I think, and then after the interview then I'll do a more in-depth analysis. So I don't think it'll really be an analysis. My viewpoint on it anyway. So Moon Safari are a progressive rock band from Sweden. They've been around for about 20 years now. Around about 10 years ago, I think it was 2011 perhaps, they brought out Himalayan Volume 1. And since then the band has been on a hiatus, and they have now returned with this follow-up. I've been listening to it repeatedly for the last couple of weeks. It is, in the truest sense, a progressive rock album. It's absolutely incredible. It's their weird mix of sort of 80s music references, incredible vocal harmonies, full-on progressive rock. It's a wonderful album that really brings back into the realm of prog the idea of melody, which I think is a very good thing. I am a sucker for a good melody, always have been. I'm a sucker for beautiful chord progression. They do all sorts of things on this album. It's a wonderful album. Now, one of the things that's apparent to me is that this is a self-release. Moon Safari have their own record label. They have brought it out under their own steam, and this makes the achievement even more incredible. Without a label support, they've been able to pull something like this together, and it's taken 10 years to make. It baffles me why this band has not been offered a proper deal and it is getting the full works that you would expect to have with a proper deal, which is, I think, has pushed this band a little bit under the radar. For me, they are one of the great progressive rock bands working at the moment. They have proved their worth over the last 20 years. They have produced some really incredible stuff. At the end of this video, I'll go in to talk about this album and why I think the progressive rock world is a little bit reticent to deal with this band. So for all their prettiness and apparent popisms and melodicisms, there seems to be something truly way out about this. It offers something to the world of progressive rock that that world just seems to be a little bit frightened of, and I'm going to get into that at the end of the video. Anyway, I had a wonderful interview with Petter. It's a long interview. This will be a long video. So shall we jump into the interview with Petter? Then I'll be back in about an hour. Hello, Petter. Lovely to see you.
Nice to see you.
And I have had your new album on in the car all week, and it's just blown me away. And I'll be doing a review of it, and I thought I'd love to talk to you about the album and music in general. So can you tell us a little bit about this new album?
Yeah, it's taken us 10 years, so that's the story now. But we always, we set Volume 1 on the last album, so it felt natural to close the book, so to speak. But we started the pre-production, I think, in 2014, maybe around that. We did an offshoot there with the Sin project. We produced that album and wrote a lot of the stuff too as well. And the pre-production went quite fast. We had a lot of ideas and songs, but and we recorded the drums were already recorded. The bass and drums were recorded in 2019, I think. But then, and we started mixing with another guy, and the pandemic hit when we were supposed to go to Cruise to the Edge and for rehearsal before that. And so when everything went down, we kind of went as well. This another a year basically
Yeah, well, I've
It's
got to be
down the
honest.
pipe.
I've been listening to it all week. It's incredibly detailed. I mean, it. There's so much going on in it.
Yeah,
And in this interview, I really want to try and get under the concepts for Moon Safari, and especially for this album. But I'll give you my my sort of a take on it, having it in the car. There's a I'm a sucker for melodies. I'm a sucker for nice chords, but I'm also a sucker for way out music, way out prog. And the thing I like about your band is it seems to really explore those in a really interesting way. You know, there's certain points where you've got very lush, almost like middle of the road, like not middle of the road, but you know, like ELO type, very poppy, you know, sounding
yeah,
melodies. And there's also you seem to channel into certain styles of music, especially 80s styles of music. I can hear, and just as you go so far towards something, it seems to twist off into these incredibly dense progressive rock stuff, and the virtuosity level is incredible. The not just the band, but obviously the vocals as well. But I find something really compelling about your band. And it was a big inspiration for my band Rain. You know, you know, when I heard your band many years ago now, I
yeah,
was like, wow, you know, I love the fact that this is full on prog, but also that it's because a lot of prog could be so, it just, it's fancy and complex for complex sake. You know, they don't have,
yeah, yeah. I know.
and I, with your band, I really feel that there's a real commitment to good, strong melodies as well as all the mad stuff. So how did you conceptualize all that, and what are the influences in there, and you know, how's it come about?
Well, the mainly the influence, the biggest influence is the Beatles, I think. I mean, Simon has his vocal arrangement background. He's a big, huge fan of the late great Gene Perling, who did harmonies for Singers Unlimited, I think, Singers Unlimited, and also the high lows. That's probably his favorite. What he listens to the most, besides the Beatles.
That's
And
incredible. I've got an album, and I did a video about it the other day for my patrons, I think. But I pulled out this Singers Unlimited album, and I have never heard anybody ever mention them before, ever. And
yeah,
this album's incredible, and it's got Beatles arrangements on it.
yeah, Eleanor Rigby, and that's
Yeah, it's
an amazing one.
unbelievable. And
Yeah,
the specific sound, the vocal sound that's there, you are right. It's the sound you've got. You know,
yeah,
I'm quite a big, I'm a really big Manhattan Transfer fan.
yeah,
And I also, my dad used to play me the Swingle Singers and all that type of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So I can remember I picked up this album, didn't know what it was, and bought it. So can you tell me a little bit more about that band, Singers Unlimited? I mean,
I
are
mean,
they?
it's Simon's cup of tea, but it's in his DNA. I mean, for me, you know, the vocal. I've always loved the Beatles harmonies, and Simon would tell you that we're called the Beach Boys of Prog. That's kind of a label. It's about to change, but so it's the Beach Boys of Prog, and Simon's like the Beach Boys. I don't know. I like the Beatles harmonies better because Brian Wilson has a way he's with intonation on the vocals. It's a bit too high,
Hmm,
but you know that's the way he heard it and he
yeah,
wanted it. But I mean, the high lows and the Manhattan Transfer. That's what inspired Brian Wilson to do the harmonies. But I mean, it's all in Simon's. It's in his blood and DNA. It's and arranging harmonies. You sing a line to a melody to Simon. We have like the verse melody, and you kind of know what a chorus is going to be three-part or something. And maybe we should have some answers. And okay, we sing the melody, and Simon stops. He's playing his invisible piano and just listen to the notes in the head. And then he got a 5-part or 6-part like that. It's
So
incredible.
how do you put a band together where everybody can sing that well?
Yeah, it's so but I mean we caught on fast, and when before we started the band, we met Simon on a lot of parties, and he's always, he wants to sing harmonies with people, and after a few pints, he wants to, you do this part, you do this part, and so that's we got to we grew up together, but he's 3 years younger, but I think we had a run in, when we were kids, playing some games and stuff, but as when before we formed the band, we met him at parties and we were singing harmonies with him. We knew he had an incredible voice. He had played in like a prog metal band called Karma Cosmic, where Mike, a new drummer, he played keyboards, and our ex-drummer was the drummer there, and our first guitarist in Moon Safari also played. So we kind of we took the members from Karma Cosmic and and formed Moon Safari. But it was natural to us, and I mean, Johan was singing, and everyone singing. Pontus and the brothers, they've been singing forever, So
it's a fascinating thing. I don't know whether culturally there's more singing going on there than there is here.
And you kind of get into the mindset, after a while. The first album, we were almost, amazed by Simon's brain and how it works with all the harmonies, and he's I mean, we played live, and so we rehearsed a lot of the harmonies, but then and you kind of, what I'm going to sing this part, and behold, it's like this.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible, the arrangement of the vocals. One of my best friends here is a guy called Rob Grocott, and I've known Rob for about 15 years, and I was doing all my prog stuff, but Rob was all songs, and his dad was Kelly Grocott from ELO.
Oh,
so Rob had been brought up with that vocal sound, and Rob does vocal arrangements.
yeah.
And that sort of thing. The ELO vocal is a very specific, voicing. There's a certain sound there, and Kelly had this incredible range, and that's how he got the gig. I think he was in a club, and Jeff Lynne went to to try and check out a bass player, and he was up playing guitar, but he was singing this like Nancy Sinatra song, and he was up in that range. And so I think Kelly had a lot to do with arranging the vocals for ELO, and so I when I first heard You, which was probably around about 2009 2010, when I first heard Moon Safari, and I was going, oh my god, and I went to see Rob and said, listen to this band, it's like you and me could work together, we could have these harmonies, and we could do this. And because I think there's I think the best prog is often quite groovy, and the best prog has really beautiful melodies. Those are two things that most great prog bands, and I think it's something that gets forgotten, in the mix. So another thing I wanted to dig into was the influences on there, because forgive me for not knowing the track titles. I've had it on the car and I wasn't able to see. But the track that opens the album, when it first kicks in, I thought, my God, this sounds like somewhere between Jump by Van Halen and Chariots of Fire. And I thought it was two 80s iconic sounds, and you were almost like you deliberately nailed this to make a statement. And I thought, oh my God. And then when the track kicks in, it's going towards very sweet vocals, but also some of the movements and the harmonic, and the sort of quite heavy riffs.
Yeah.
And it's always like this when you first hear an album, but I could hear little bits of like my old band IQ in there. I could hear little bits of even Frost in there. I can hear a whole bunch of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But I heard a lot of sort of 80s rock,
Yeah, it's been all the rage. I mean, since I don't know 2015 or something. I think one of the most influential records for indie artists and the pop genre has been Fleetwood Mac's Tango in the Night. You know,
Yeah.
you do hear the drum sounds and the synthesizers going on in a lot of the popular music. So I mean, the 80s has had a resurgence for quite some time now. So we're almost a bit too late to the party, but so it's definitely intentional. But I mean, everyone in the band are 80s kids, except for the youngest Åkesson brother is 1990. But we're 80s kids, you know, and we have fond memories of the pastel colored times. But I mean, volume 1, it ends with a false cadence that's resolved with the opening track, Heaven Hill. And the synthesizer, it's of course it's a riff on Jump and but and then, you know, it's we wanted to do an opener that kind of similar to, you know, Magical Mystery Tour. It's like here we go, we're in for a ride.
When I first put the album on, it was a little bit overwhelming, and I do want to talk to you about that. And then I've had it on in the car all week, just going round and round listening to it, and starting to this sort of statement of intent, and then you go very far over to sort of I don't know how to explain it. You could say it's very poppy, very but it's, to me, there's an irony there. Is that deliberate? Is it ironic when you do this stuff, or do you really believe in it? There's a certain thing where, because when you're doing something that's so chirpy, you know, and happy, and then suddenly these insane prog things come in, it's like, I really enjoy that. And I think, but they're not doing this just to look clever. They've got an intention behind this, you know, and sometimes it's hard to put these things into words, but is it ironic, or is it not?
No, no, it's not ironic. I think but it's intentional. I'd say, you know, and there's a difference, I guess. But we're I mean, I feel like the first half of the album is kind of has kind of a nice diversity of you know, this heavy stuff going on, prog and pop, and the last half is the epic Moon Safari, if you know. It's like
I wanted to talk to you about that in detail, because I think this is what blew me away. The epic, it is a proper epic, isn't it? It's just, how do you I mean, is this composed like on paper, or how do you write something that?
I mean, I know zero about music theory.
Really?
Nothing. If you point to place on the guitar, I can't name the note. There's on the piano, I'll have a better guess. But I mean, the main theme that kicks off the Teen Angel, I think I sang that to Pontus when we were touring for Himmelbach in Volume 1. We were in Rüsselsheim, played in Das Rind, and so the theme came to me, and I sang it to Pontus, and it's like, that's great, you must record it on your phone, and I did. But I was kind of like, it sounds like something from Star Wars, you know, Return of the Jedi, and I was like, but I know that movie by heart, but am I ripping off John Williams now, you know? But I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I mean, the verses, the bridge, and the chorus I wrote on just an acoustic guitar, and it was always my plan to have me sing first, and Simon and Pontus to do like a shared. At one time, I thought about that every member had a line, you know, but then I would be singing less. So
Well, one of the things I really liked about it was that playing in so many prog bands, when we were in IQ, we used to talk about the prog sandwich. And the
Yeah,
prog sandwich is basically you write a song and then you write a fiddly bit at the beginning and then you write a fiddly bit for the end, and that's
and
basically it. And
yeah, and it's kind of similar.
I've been on with my own music. I've been really trying to explore writing long form stuff where it sort of goes and moves and you feel like it needed to be that long.
Yeah,
And the big epic, it really does take you on a journey and it really takes you up and then it lands you in a certain place.
yeah.
How does the band pull? I mean, is it how are you doing it? It's anybody who
So
hasn't heard, you have to hear this epic. It's absolutely quite incredible.
thank you.
I've had that on in the car, and I've had a band called Thank You Scientist on it as
Oh
well.
yeah,
And Thank You Scientist is incredibly virtuoso, and it's all incredible playing, and they're doing all this really complex stuff.
yeah.
But
It's math
going
prog,
between the
right?
two albums, I'm like, yeah, but they're just being complex, and it just keeps going on. And afterwards, you get a bit shell shocked.
Yeah,
With Moon Safari, I always feel like a there's a reason for it, so that you're trying to take
yeah,
that story and take me on a journey, and you have that feeling at the end. This is what I like about progressive rock, when you sort of, it's the sort of, and she's buying a stairway.
yeah.
That when
A
you
payoff.
hear Stairway to Heaven, then you get to the end, you go, oh my God, that was something else.
Yeah, you need a payoff. Yeah,
Yeah, how do you go about right? I mean, it's 20 minutes long. How do you write something like that? Is it cobbled together or?
Yeah, it is. It is. So the main theme and the verses and the chorus that started with me, and we wrote it in 3 days in a
No
weekend.
way.
Yes. So on Friday, I think we like pre-production, so drums, fake bass, and like plugins, organs, and moogs and stuff like that. And I think we got to the second chorus after that one, and my chorus was a bit weirder before Simon's like, no, it shouldn't be 9/8 here. It's like, and structured some of the chords, and he added the back part, where we do the double kick drum. That's
Incredible.
Simon. Yeah.
So who's your drummer? Because he's an incredible drummer.
Yeah, it's a new drummer. It's Michael Israelson. He played with Black Bonzo from our hometown as well. The first two albums are quite proggy, and he's amazing, and he's a great producer and arranger as well. So he knows, to restrain himself to get the best sound, out of the song. But I mean, on Friday we had to the second chorus, and then Simon went home to be with his family, and we were kind of like, okay, what are we going to do now? And Simon had these ideas on the computer that's unused, and we were just checking out what he had, and we found this where the instrumental part, the fiddly bits, where that start, and so we just took that part and glued it in, and it fit perfectly. And I think on Saturday, Simon came back. He was the one who came up with mankind will try to that part.
Yeah.
And then I did this hard rock kind of thing where we do dueling vocals. And then we just, we wanted to do like a throwback to like 70s, 80s hard rock with a kind of galloping thing and an organ solo and guitar solo. Yeah,
it's brilliant. Yeah,
yeah, it's kind of the first time we do an instrumental part like that, with a galloping thing, and And then
The whole album's a little bit heavier, isn't it, as well?
yeah,
There's certain bits that I was thinking, oh my god, there's certain bits that's almost prog metal in places.
Yeah,
And is
it's
this
almost,
because of is this the new drummer? Because he's obviously got the chops to do all that stuff.
yeah. He's brought a lot of detail and attention to the low end on the sound, definitely. But I mean, we always kind of felt that we don't want to go prog metal, but just we've always been accused of being too cheesy and kind and nice and fluffy and unicorn and ice creams. But
people don't get it. This is what makes the band so great. For me,
I mean,
that's the thing I love about it.
If you don't like My Boy Lollipop, then fuck off.
Yeah. Well, it's like that thing when George Duke in the 60s was playing with John LePonte, and he was into Coltrane, and they were playing like really exploratory post-Coltrane jazz. And then he gets the gig in Frank Zappa's band, and Frank said to him, Coltrane's heavy. He says, I know he's heavy, he's really heavy, but there's other ways to be heavy. And just because something sounds light and fluffy doesn't mean that the whole thing's light and fluffy, because that can be heavy. And that's what I find so exciting. And so probably ironic's not the same word, but it's like the right word. It's more, it's these colors that you play with. You know, I find it fascinating, and talking to you now, I'm realizing that Moon Safari is an actual band, isn't it? That is a band with a magic going on, because you can hear that in the vocal sound. It's the voices are so matched, and so that when you say you wrote a track like that in 3 days, because a lot of the bands I'm in, it's usually just a year and lots of rows to get stuff like that done. Yeah,
and I mean the Saturday we had was another idea that Simon had, the London Bridge part. And after that, we just reused the main theme, and Pontus can have his moment in the sun with a guitar solo.
Incredible. And then playing on it.
And then it's a reprise of the verses and the bridge, and back to the chorus, and then it's the London Bridge, but with a twist in major key there at the end.
Yeah. So why is that there? Why the London Bridge is falling down there?
Do I want to spoil this? But
you don't have to tell me you don't want to. You can leave it a mystery that makes it more exciting.
Oh yeah,
but there is a reason for it to be there.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the song lyrics are it's basically, I did 3 drafts. I threw the 2 first ones away. I tried to make a political statement. I was furious after Russia banned the rainbow flag in the Olympics. But then it was impossible to keep up with what was going on with the political landscape. It was just every day was something even madder. The picture of Boris Johnson when he's playing, he's holding a guitar and he has the capo on the
and he's playing behind the capo.
Yes, I mean it was impossible. But I kept it's the end of the world, so it must be political. But it's basically, would I recommend my daughter to join the music industry? And it's a celebration of rock and roll history. So there's a lot of Easter eggs, like Johnny Mellor. People gonna Google who's Johnny Mellor. It's like and stuff like that. But I also based the lyrics on a famous poem. I can tell you, I can write it to you, and that's where the Indian chants and the London Bridge comes from. Well, I think Genesis wrote cinema show or something based on this poem as well.
Well, I've got a theory with the best prog it has to contain something that I call the English aesthetic, and I've talked about it a lot on my channel. And then
I
people
listened.
go at me and say, "Yeah, but what about Rush?" And I go, "No, Rush have the English aesthetic. You don't have to be English to have this." And there's a moment where there's a church organ and this music comes in. And I thought this is one of the most English moments I've ever heard on a progressive rock album recently, because that's lacking for me a lot of the time.
It is an English poem, but I mean, I heard your 10 bands we hate. I listened to that one, and you talk about the Englishness that like the best bands have that, and I agree with you. I mean, I don't want to piss American friends off, but they're based in the blues.
Yeah.
And when they are rocking, they are FM rocking, you know. They are doing like, I don't know, it's I don't know, it's just blues based, or it's the FM radio rock kind of thing going on when they rock. So it's kind of predictable in a way. Where
well, my theory is that what happened in London in the 60s, where you move from sort of beat groups, the Beatles, towards rock music with Cream and then Hendrix and all that type of stuff, and then Led Zeppelin. I think what happened is you had English people trying to play the blues.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of blues around, and you get bands like Fleetwood Mac, and you get bands like Led Zeppelin and all that type of thing.
Yeah.
And then those bands start to wonder about, oh God, I'm going to have to switch my phone off. Sorry about this. It's
okay.
I'm going to stick it under there. So they then start to think, well, how can we play the blues, but play it in a way which is culturally English? And I think a lot of those great bands, the Beatles are one of them. They're probably the greatest ones, because they start off as a sort of rhythm and blues, Chuck Berry style band.
Yeah.
And then you start to hear these music hall influences come in. You get the George Formby influences. You sort of get the sort of the classical chamber music, and they're exploring all sorts of Englishness.
Yeah.
With Led Zeppelin, they go off to Bronny Iron, and they you get Led Zeppelin 3, which has always been my favorite Zepp album, because that's where they discover the Englishness. And a lot of the great bands, I've always said this, that so rock music has that embodied in it. And in the same way that they could play blues and jazz and rhythm and blues styles in their way, other bands also take on that Englishness. And I've often said, like, say for example, Focus are a prog band that seem to sometimes take the Englishness further out than a lot of English prog bands, and your band's the same. I think that's what I love about it so much, is that it's so bonkers to say it, but it's the Englishness. So I'm fascinated by this trip down music history that you're doing, because I hadn't picked up on that, because I'm still at the stage just going, God, how have they done this? Just
and it's and I mean, we're talking Led Zeppelin. There's a line in there when it's what is it? It's and the Queen is cleaning the seasons at the end, and that's it's a spring clean for the May Queen.
Yeah.
So that's but I agree with you. The Englishness is it's what it's what I think what makes a band great, actually, in my opinion. And I think it's I don't know American bands that I say is the blues bass and FM like arena rocking going on. They should explore the soul side of their legacy, or the folk music. But another difference between the Brits and the America are the humor, and Sweden Brits. We laugh at Monty Python, and Canadians does as well, Rush, and Americans are like Monty Python, I don't know, and we laugh at the original The Office. In America, they do their own Office.
Yeah, and it's not the same.
No, it's not the same, but so might be a difference there as well, just culturally,
Yeah, and I feel that's one of the things that prog does, and I think once you've got your tongue a little bit in your cheek,
Yeah.
it doesn't. It's like with IQ. I mean, I played in IQ for 5 years.
Yeah.
IQ are the sort of darkest, doomiest prog band ever. They like sort of invented the sort of 80s doomy progginess.
Yeah.
But being in the band was like being in a Monty Python film, because they're so, all the time it was comedy. So the actual music's very serious, but wrapped around it is all this comedy. And I can remember, when we did the Enemy Smacks, and Pete comes out dressed in that. He's got a full black sort of death cape on, and he's got the white face. And I can remember doing it when we rehearsed it, and he did it. I was like, oh my God, this is bonkers. He's on stage. And then when the song finished, they then projected him, and he was in his house doing the washing up in the full garb, going, and they cut to that, and it's that, because once you have that, you can be pompous, and you can be cheesy, and you can be do all these things, because we're serious about this, but we don't take it seriously. It's that
exactly.
So when I first heard Moon Safari, and I was a little late to the party, I thought, this is going to be the biggest prog band in the world. This is incredible. I know. I really was blown away, and I'm a little bit jaded when it comes to prog bands. There's not many I really like but modern prog bands. And then it just all went away. And like you said, you also had COVID. You've spent 10 hours making this album. So what happened with that momentum? Did you feel like you lost momentum,
I mean, we kind of did, but it's hard, we don't have a record label. We're doing this all on our own. And we shopped this album to a couple of the big labels, and they were not interested. And it's like, this is not the future. I was like, oh, I thought melodies was always the future, but well, you never know. But I mean, we opened for Yes 2015 or 16 in Royal Albert Hall there, and we were supposed to go on tour with them, but Chris Squire died, and I think that might have opened some doors. But
I think you're all set, because I've listened to all your albums. They're all really great, but I think with this one, it has gone up a little gear. It's gone up a gear. I think it really is like a sort of a massive statement. And I've been waiting for it to come out, and I was chatting to another YouTuber, Notes Reviews, and we were saying, what's the big album, do you think? And I was Moon Safari. I said, yeah, I'm waiting for that one. The other album that's blown me away has been the Avenged Sevenfold album.
Yeah, I heard you talk about it.
Yeah, it's real. You should check it out.
And
there's a lot of very interesting stuff. But I really hope that now you're in a position to get out there, do some gigs, and if I can help in any way, I will. So just give me a shout.
That's great.
If there's anything I can do, any gigs over in the UK.
We need to come back. Yeah, definitely.
Did you not send it to GP, IQ's label?
Yeah, we talked with Mike, but it's like, either you need to sell a lot more, to make it. We get all the money ourselves, now, and we can buy a new synthesizer and add another middle hand. And I think GEP, they might have the same reach that we do now,
Yeah.
So then we can't afford the new synth,
I mean, the general public, the prog audience, they don't understand this, and I this is why I'm doing my channel, because I'm very interested in trying to help bands. I really want to, if I could get to, say, in 2 or 3 years' time, if I've got a really reasonable reach, I should be able to just go, well, I really like this band and I think this needs to be pushed, and I want to push all the stuff that's in the cracks because that's the stuff I like, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Is if you're not just doing the mainstream sort of thing, the label won't take a risk, because it really is the case now that they've got a certain number in their head that they need to sell just to cut even.
Yeah.
And they want that guaranteed. So what happens is they tend to go for stuff that relates to the past in some way. You know, so if Steve Hackett wants to change his deal, he will obviously get a new deal, because they'll go, well, we know we've got that amount. And so it's a bit of a funny one, whether it's best to be a self-release like you, or be on a label. I don't know. It's a big discussion, really.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it was for a long time, you know, it was a dream, you know, to sign a deal with a record label. But yeah, I mean, what is it really? Isn't it more important to play for an audience and
yeah, and you know, it's like if you haven't got a deal, you can get by about on small sales and make some money, and you can just about cover your costs. You can do all that.
I mean, we've been very lucky.
You don't get any money because they're, you know, it's all tied up unless you really do well. But the labels can often help in terms of, you know, there's a lot of websites, a lot of all sorts of different publications that will go, oh, there's a new album coming out on whatever it is, you know, Inside Out, and they see that list, and then you're in there, you know. I don't know. I think all I could say is that, and the reason why I'm saying this, I think, is because if anyone's watching this, and hopefully they are, you must go and check Petter's album out. You must check Moon Safari's album. I really want to try and, you know, let's give it a big push. And I don't do this unless I really feel there's a reason for doing it. And it's a real masterpiece, this album.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Really,
yeah, it's.
You know, I was a little when I first put it on, I was a little bit like, I don't know what I'm going to say about this, because I was a bit overwhelmed by it.
Okay.
Because I you know, when you're like confused, you think, I don't know whether I like this. And when it first came on, it's taking me all over the place, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know what to think about this. And then I put it on in the car, and that epic was like, whoa, because at that point I thought, is this album going to be all sort of quite, you know, quite poppy, you know?
Yeah. The first half is kind of poppy,
yeah. But it's actually, when you get the whole album, it takes you on a journey, and that's what I like about, you know, great prog.
Yeah, and I think it's a double LP, and you know, we structured it to be like a classic album, you know, with the sides and everything. So obviously, Teen Angel is a side C and stuff like that. So it feels like in that way like a classic album, but it's not a Spotify release, you know.
No, it's so hard to do this at the moment.
Yeah,
it really is. I have found that since my YouTube channel started to pick up, and there's that audience there, because I got a very specific market, which is prog and jazz fusion, and I cover a sort of my audience, and I'm buttering you all up now, but my audience they are really open-minded. They listen to more than just prog, because I cover all this different stuff, and I think that's the future, really, is having, you know, stuff online that you can get a relationship with, where people can come out and say.
Yeah, I mean the market's huge, and I really enjoyed your conversation with Notes there, and you talked about the prog bands you hate, but not kind of hate, but
I don't hate any bands.
No,
I find myself discussing bands. I'm saying I hate them, you know. But if it's like the classic ones, Marillion. I'm not a Marillion fan at all. But there's a drummer. Why I don't like Marillion, and it's because I'd heard all that when, you know, I'm old enough that when Marillion came out, I had all the Genesis albums, I had all the Yes albums. So you go and buy Script for a Jester T, it doesn't impress you particularly. And so I was like, well, this is as good as Genesis. That's how I felt, you know. And then I didn't really follow it. But if I was driving in the car and a Marillion track came on, I would probably like that more than everything else that they'd played before, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't really hate.
No.
Don't really hate anything really.
But no. No, me too. It's but it's I mean the music industry now, it's weird. And it has changed a lot in, you know, the 10 years we've been quiet.
Totally.
And so you know, just releasing a song and you're trying to figure out algorithms with Facebook, and can we post a video on Facebook? No, you can't, because they kill the reach. And you know, it's a jungle.
I mean, musicians haven't got a clue. This is the thing. And
yeah, and you post something on Facebook and it's like, okay, I'm gonna promote my song from Spotify or YouTube, and Facebook's like, no, but boost this post by paying an amount, so you can get to 10,000 streams on Spotify, so you can get your 4.5 quid. You know, it's okay.
And the thing is, you're not going to get anywhere without video. And as soon as you get into video, the costs, you know, are huge, because it's the new recording studio. Video is the thing that's really difficult to do. I'm friends with Martin Miller, and he's a musician, and his album is fantastic, very melodic as well. I really do like it. His productions he does on YouTube, they're incredible. He's got caterers, he's got like crew, you know, to do it well. You either do it yourself and you've got a crew that you don't have to pay, or you're gonna have to pay, you know, a lot of money to get a bit of video done. And you can't really do anything without video. And what that does is it means that bands that are interested in musical stuff, it's like then you've got to be like in front of the camera performing, and a lot of brilliant musicians aren't like that. They're interested in creating amazing music, and so it becomes really difficult. My YouTube started out of I was, you know, teaching music, and I thought I really need to start to get my head around it, and I thought just study YouTube, and in studying it I suddenly went, oh, that's how it works, you see. And so one of the things I'm trying to do is use it as a platform for it becomes the new distributor, it becomes the new label. You know, it's you could almost have an entity on YouTube where bands sign and they've got, you know, millions of followers, and they can then just go, look, this is what we're into, and it's genre, you know, links. And it see, Prog really doesn't have a central huge website that's sort of dedicated to prog.
No,
there's loads of little fan sites, and they're all run by people who are really like detail conscious, you know. So there's loads of information there, but there's nothing that we all go to find out what is the thing, you know, and all that type of stuff. So there's no mechanism to put the stuff out there, and that's a shame, that is. And I really would like to be able to try and do that, you know. So it is very difficult, you know. But I think your album is so good, it's going to have legs, because I really believe that as well.
Yeah, hopefully. We've done more promotion for this one than we've ever did, but it's like we've done a lot of interviews, and we've released the second single today, and I mean, the last time we have like 2-3 interviews spread in a 4-month period. We've done like, so we've been kind of, you know, stepping up a game, but you need to try to, you know, find your way through the.
We'll have, after a couple of days' time, we'll have another chat, and I'll see what I can do, any contacts I've got, you know. And my best mate runs Fusion Fest, which is a big prog festival now in the Midlands. It's just literally up the road from me, and I keep saying to Steve, get Moon Safari on, you know. But he's had his fingers, but bringing bands over, you know, because there's certain costs there. But you know, let's have a chat afterwards. But I'm gonna have to jump out now because I've got my patron meeting.
All right.
Minutes.
Yeah.
But it has been lovely talking to you, and I will do my best. And like anybody who's watching, check Moon Safari's new album out because it's absolutely incredible. So
yeah, and if
thanks, Peter. That's been brilliant.
Thank you.
So hopefully that has filled you in about Moon Safari and the new album, and you've been able to get a much better idea about it. Shall we, before we carry on, shall we have a little bit more of a listen to it? You heard it at the top of this video. Do you want to have a little bit more of a listen? So here is some a few tracks off the album for you to have a listen to. Right, so this album is multi-layered. When I first heard it, I wasn't too sure what to make of it. It goes from almost like middle of the road sort of yacht rock poppy vocal harmony stuff, very pretty, and you could say in a way a little bit trite, you know. And when this kicked off, I heard the opening track, which sounded like something between Chariots of Fire and Jump. You know, they are exploring that sound, but there's quirks in there that separate it from that. Talking to Petter, you start to realise that this is actually not only referring to previous recordings, it literally is a follow-up to Volume 1, and it refers back to that. But in referring back to that, it refers to the whole of music history, which I find really interesting. And all the devices that they use within this, the arrangements of the compositions, are not there just to appear clever. They're not just doing all this trickery and incredible. I mean, the epic on here is absolutely jaw-dropping. It goes to places, and the complexity is just absolutely jaw-dropping. But the more you listen to it, the more you realise it's there for a reason. This band have a concept, they have an idea, they have a sound, they have a chemistry which enables this band to do stuff that other bands can't do. There is obviously a magic with this band, and you can really hear it in the vocal harmonies. The vocal harmonies just sit locked so close together, it's almost like a family singing. You know, when you listen to the Jacksons or the Bee Gees and you get that sound where everybody's voices are so interlinked. I get that with Moon Safari, and what's incredible is this isn't a separate set of singers. This is the same people who are playing the virtuoso parts on this album that are also doing the vocals. So the question is, why is it at times so pretty? Why is it at times so, you know, melodic? Because I feel that it is that aspect that seems to be the frightening thing for the progressive rock world. And this is quite interesting because when progressive rock starts in the 60s and 70s, yes, there are the doomy progressive rock bands. We can definitely point to King Crimson and Van der Graaf Generator. But a lot of the other ones had a sense of humour. They had a sort of a prettiness, a sort of reverence for sort of that romantic period of classical music. Harmonies, beautiful melodies, light, airy, and basically uplifting. This is the post-60s, and these bands are trying to uplift us and take us up, you know, with something that is positive. All the great music that exists, essentially, when you come down to it, is positive. Now, as Peter said in the interview, they've taken this round to all the labels, and the labels have rejected it. It's incredibly well produced, it's incredibly well written, but I don't think it falls into a trend that has emerged in progressive rock, which is where it has to be dystopian and doomy. You know, it's got to be full of angst. And if it's not full of angst, then the perceived seriousness is not there. And of course, progressive rock has to be serious. And are Moon Safari taking it seriously, or what are they trying to achieve with this? Well, it's my opinion that their explorations of this other realm, this realm of sunlight and happiness and, you know, flowers and kittens and all the lovely things in life, is truly shocking in the modern world, especially within progressive rock. You know, that audience almost has now bought into this sort of dystopian, you know, post-apocalyptic sort of narrative that just sort of comes in and swamps all progressive rock. Now, am I against that? Of course I'm not. It's an incredible thing to do. But at some point it becomes a cliche. And I'm fired up by the way that they utilise these pretty melodies and beautiful harmonies, which I love. I love music, I love harmony, I love melody. I love to hear the things that sound nice, you know. I love their harmonic twists. I love all the different references that seem to go beyond progressive rock, which is another thing that I think they're doing, which again truly goes back to the ethos of progressive rock. And it's whether you see progressive rock as a genre, so that you have to do certain things to sound like progressive rock, or whether you see it as an ethos or a way of life. And I think that there's certain musicians out there that to express themselves, they have to express themselves on a grand scale. They have to express themselves in a way that explores the epic. I am one of those musicians, you know. That's why I see myself fundamentally as a progressive rock musician. I enjoy the conceptual aspect of making music. I enjoy the musical aspect, the compositional aspect. I enjoy the challenge of trying to write something that goes beyond 3 minutes and to have references to other things and to be able to... and the assumption is that anyone who makes progressive rock, that someone will sit down in a darkened room with a nice glass of wine perhaps, and put the record on and listen to it beginning to end, and you're trying to create a musical service which will open up the listener and take them in on this journey. Of course, there's other bands that what they want to do is they're writing songs. Say if you like Queen wrote songs to be sung on a huge stage and create this sort of communal atmosphere on stage with these big sing-alongs and these great big sort of shout-outs to the crowd and back. And if you're AC/DC, you're there to rock. You're there to rock the joints. You know, some people want to shock the audience. There's all these things that music does, but just because you're shocking the audience or making them feel depressed or doomy does not mean that if you're doing that, that does not mean you're heavyweight. And somebody who is exploring other areas of music, right, that does not mean that they're lightweight. Okay, now, as we look back on the history of rock music, certain bands, and I'm thinking of bands like Toto, and I'm thinking of bands like Journey, and all those bands around the early 80s, I think people are starting to develop a grudging respect for them. They're starting to realise what these bands can do. There's a re-evaluation of that. Because, as people say, they're really playing, and there's a real melodies there. They're creating beautiful music that you can appreciate musically. Now, I think what Moon Safari are doing is that is an element that they are winding into a conceptual framework that you either accept or you don't. There's a reference to that, but it is not that. In that aspect, this album is truly postmodern. And by doing it in the way they are doing it, right, that is creating something that is truly avant-garde. Avant-garde literally means the next step, the next stage. Now, the other album I've been listening to this week is by that guy from, is it Outcast, Andre 3000. Now, I read that he hasn't made a rap album, he's made a flute-based music album, an instrumental album. So I checked it out. It's so much more than that. This is a minimal, ambient, very pretty, but very slow-moving albums with tracks that are all around about the quarter of an hour mark. A lot of the time he's playing what sounds like a MIDI flute. It's very electronic, it's very ethereal. Andre 3000 is allowed to do this. He's allowed to explore this now because he's paid his dues. His audience there will go along to it and they will give it the time because it's Andre 3000. And he, by all accounts, doesn't need to prove anything anyway. And so he's making the album he wants to make. He's pursuing the musical things that he finds interesting. It's a very, very interesting album, albeit very slow moving. But it's a very pretty album. It's a very musical album. And it makes a statement about Andre 3000, which shows that this guy is the real deal. He's a musician. That is what he is in. He's a musician that makes music. And he's willing to explore something that for a rap artist is way beyond what you expect. This is not a rap album. Andre 3000 is a virtuoso rapper who is respected within the rap community, but he has done something else. Want to push music forward, to explore the boundaries of the genre you're in, should be a prerequisite of progressive rock. And I've said this over and over again. So I have often championed Moon Safari. Now, I get a kickback on this channel for not covering new artists. And I've had a few kickbacks where people have said, you aren't following the avant prog bands. You're not following the way out bands. You know, I will talk about Albert Ayler or Archie Shepp or Peter Brotzmann or Last Exit or John Zorn, all these very avant-garde, and I love all that. I love it, right? But a lot of what is called avant prog sounds incredibly conservative. It sounds like some band trying to, you know, resurrect the sound of krautrock from 50 years ago. And I don't find it that compelling. It doesn't seem to be risk-taking at all. Whereas Moon Safari do. And my initial reaction when I put the album on, even with my love of the band, was whatever they do, they were doing times 10. I really believe this is the album to start with. If you don't know the band, this is the album to go for. They have pulled all the elements together that they do, and they've gone beyond it. And it's very difficult to put into words what they are actually doing. Conceptually, it's very, very deep. It's very involved. I get the feeling the more I listen to the album that I now need to really explore the lyrics and trying to get under conceptually what this album's about. Petter, in the interviews you saw, he didn't want to go there, and he's right to go there. And I said, look, just don't go there, because an artist expresses these things in the art. There's a mystery there, right? As I said in the interview, the other album I've had on in the car is Thank You Scientist. Now, Thank You Scientist is this sort of incredibly virtuoso, sort of progressive rock band with pretty vocals, which sort of traverses between jazz, fusion and prog, incredibly virtuoso. And it's in the same area as Moon Safari. So I've had both albums on at the same time. In a way, the Thank You Scientist album is even more virtuoso than the Moon Safari album. But I can't help but feeling, and I may be wrong, and I may need to have to explore Thank You Scientist more, but I feel that a lot of the time what I'm supposed to do is be impressed by the technical ability. I'm supposed to jaw drop that they can pull these things off. And I think their fan base on the whole is there to revel in the incredible complexity of this band. There's really interesting use of genre with that band. But although the virtuosity level is so high, I wonder whether it quite has the conceptual framework of something like Moon Safari, that when they're doing these clever things, I ask myself, well, why are they doing it? Is it because it's just clever, or are they mining this genre because there's a reason for mining this genre? Now, that's very important to progressive rock. Progressive rock generically is a style that could pull supposedly any style in. So when you listen to the early progressive rock bands in the 70s, what strikes you is that suddenly rock music has expanded to such an extent that they can do whatever they want. If they want to do some sort of Cockney song, they can do that. If they want to do an acoustic folk song, they can do that. If they want to experiment in electronics, they can do that. Now, as I say that, the album I have in my mind as I say that is, of course, Brain Salad Surgery by ELP, a very dark and doomy album. But that darkness and doominess is balanced by Benny the Bouncer, which as a kid I found incongruous. And as I get older, I realise that this is truly way out. It's truly way out. And it goes to a point where the audience that wants ELP to do all the stuff that ELP do, we're thinking, well, why have they done this? But they did do it. They did it for a reason, and I understand the reason. It's because the ELP has its foot in that English aesthetic. It points to those sorts of, music hall and comedy songs because us British people grew up with that. It has to be in the music. If you're being honest, it has to be in the music. And I think what you have in Moon Safari is we can get very conceptual, and I think structurally the album is very conceptual, but there's another aspect to it, is that what it's really about is their love of all this different music. And it's an integration of what they love, right, without a filter. So, although it's probably much more populistic now to be mining a sort of the realm of prog metal and using your virtuosity to do all those clever tricks that impresses the kids, truly a band should always be able to create their own sound out of their diverse influences. I think this is something that progressive rock gave to the world, and that comes from the Beatles as well. As soon as the Beatles had that sort of power within the industry, they stopped being a band that was just sort of doing Liverpool versions of Chuck Berry songs, and they started to explore the world of Indian music, of music hall, of marching bands, of English classical music, of all sorts of different things, folk music, experimental music, avant-garde, communal sing-alongs. All these things are there. Children's music, it's all there, and they suddenly are in this position where you feel artistically that they are doing whatever they want to do, and that's an incredible thing to hear. Now, how much is that really going on in the world around us with bands? Andre 3000's done it, and I doff my cap, and I respect him for doing that. It's an incredible thing to do. He's in a position where he can do it. It doesn't matter. Moon Safari aren't. They have spent 10 years creating this masterpiece of a prog album. I really believe if people will give it the time, they will start to see that this is a major achievement. And this year, the two albums that have really had an impact on me has been the Avenged Sevenfold album and this Moon Safari album. They're the ones that have really blown me away. Us YouTubers that talk about progressive rock, of course, the focus has been on the Steve Wilson album. That's been the big release. And Phil Collins, not Phil Collins, the other one, Peter Gabriel's album. And that is, that's where the focus is. But for me, this could well be the progressive rock album of the year. I know you guys have got open ears. I know that my viewers can go from avant-garde experimental all the way to ABBA, and that's what this is. It's an incredible album. I found I was very moved by it by the end, but you got to stick with it. You got to give it the time. So it's a big thumbs up for me in terms of a review. And I hope this has been more of a review and it's been able to illuminate aspects of music, especially music today. So I hope you've appreciated that. If you have appreciated that, please stick a like on the video because it really helps the algorithm. Review videos don't do anywhere near as well as my top 10 progressive rock albums with a green cover or whatever. That type of thing seems to go down really well. This won't, and it's a shame. And it's something that I set the channel up to do, was for me to be able to shine a light on certain artists that I really like, and to collect an audience around me that likes similar stuff, and then be able to tell them about it. So please do your bits. The music industry is now transactional. The audience is far more involved. The marketing of artists is really based upon the audience. It's you sharing it, listening to it, liking it. So I hope you enjoy this album. Give it some time. If you're expecting to be blown away by avant-garde insanity, which the Avenged Sevenfold album was a little bit like that, that was like, whoa, what world am I in now? This isn't like that. This is something else. Give it the time. Put your ears in there. Open yourself up to the beautiful world of sunlight and flowers and kittens and conceptual density and joy and love, because that is what music's made out, and it is always fundamentally the message of my channel. So if you want to help me, because the views aren't great, stick a like on, and that will bump up the algorithm, help me loads. If you want to see more stuff like this, then subscribe. Put your thoughts in the comments. Go and have a listen to it and put your thoughts in the comments. If you want to support me doing this, I have a Patreon and the links below. And if Patreon's not to you because you're a busy person and you don't want to get even more bogged down in my ridiculous world, then you can stick some money in my PayPal tip jar, which people are doing quite regularly, and it's really helping. I can't tell you. At some point I will tell you, but I can't tell you how much that's helping me. Anyway, I hope you like this video, and I'll see you on the next one.